It was Monday morning. Less than a week was left before the cultural festival, yet the atmosphere in our school was as relaxed as ever. Does this school really intend to hold a cultural festival? Shouldn't there be more activity? Everyone seems a little too laid back. I was feeling pretty lousy as a result. As I walked to the classroom, I came across something that made me feel even worse. Koizumi was leaning against the wall in front of my classroom. You still have something to say after all that talking yesterday? Class 1-9 held play rehearsal early this morning. I just happened to be stopping by. I'd rather not have to see your smirking face this early in the morning. What is it? Don't tell me that stupid space ended up showing up again. No, it never happened yesterday. It seems that Suzumiya is too busy feeling depressed to feel irritated. Why's that? You should know the answer, but allow me to explain. Suzumiya believed that you were the only one who might always be on her side, no matter what happened. You might complain and protest, but you would support her in the end. No matter what she did, you would still forgive her, right? What do you mean, right? The only person capable of forgiving everything she does would be one of those ancient martyred saints. And just so you know, I'm neither a saint nor a great person. Just an ordinary, sensible individual. Did anything happen with Suzumiya? Like I'd let anything happen. Nothing's changed. Could you tell her to cheer up? White doves are relatively harmless, but if Suzumiya's mood continues to deteriorate, the doves at the shrine may be replaced by something that isn't very dove-like. Like what? It wouldn't be so hard if we knew the answer to that. Would it not be fairly creepy if a swarm of slimy tentacle creatures came crawling around the shrine? Just spread some salt. That wouldn't solve the fundamental problem. Suzumiya is currently in a state of suspension. Thus far, she has been proactively altering reality through filming the movie, but after your incident yesterday, she's gone off on an opposite tangent, from positive to negative. There wouldn't be an issue if that were the end of it, but at this rate, things will only get worse. So you want me to comfort her? It's not that complicated. Just simply kiss and make up. How does that even make sense? We're not even close or anything. Well, I expected you have cooled down by now. Was I expecting too much? I kept my mouth shut. I lost my cool yesterday because of the goodness in my heart couldn't bear watching the tyrannical abuse of Asahina. Or maybe not. Maybe it was just some result of calcium deficiency. Since after drinking a whole liter of milk last night, I woke up this morning to discover my rage had mysteriously evaporated. Though, that could be just placebo effect. Still, why should I have to be the one to compromise? I'm pretty sure that everyone would agree that she was the one who went too far. Koizumi was chuckling like a cat hacking up a hairball as he clapped my shoulder. I'm counting on you, since as far as the physical distance is connected, you're the closest one to her. As long as I never turned around, Haruhi, sitting right behind me, and I would never make eye contact. She appeared really interested in the weather today, as she just sat there staring out the window until it was lunchtime. On top of that, there must have been an epidemic or something, because Taniguchi was in a bad mood as well. Bro, how was that a movie? Yesterday was such a waste of time. Taniguchi cursed as he ate his boxed lunch. Haruhi was rarely ever in the classroom during breaks, and this was no exception. If she were here, this guy wouldn't be saying stuff like that. Timid people tend to speak loudly when no one's listening. We're talking about Suzumiya here. That movie or whatever will just end up being trash. At least that's obvious. I don't care what anyone has to say. I don't consider myself to be a remarkable person, and I don't see my name going down in history. I'm the kind of person who sits in a corner mumbling to himself, the kind who specializes in complaining about his mother's cooking when he can't even cook. However, there was something I had to get off my chest. So I did. Taniguchi, what have you been doing? At least Haruhi is trying to participate in the cultural festival. Even if she ends up causing trouble for a bunch of people, that still makes her better than someone who does nothing besides complain. You idiot. Apologize to all the Taniguchis in this country. It must be unpleasant for other Taniguchis that have the same name as you. Kunikita came between us. He's just sulking. He really wanted to have more fun with Suzumiya and everybody else. He's jealous of you. Like hell I am, Taniguchi retorted as he glared at Kunikita. I have no intention of joining that stupid group. Even though you tagged along whenever you're invited? You were happy about it yesterday. You even canceled your plans for the day. Don't mention that, you idiot. So that's why Taniguchi's in a bad mood. He skipped his original plans to come, yet he was sent packing after barely having any screen time. Plus, he had to fall into the pond too. I see. He deserves, I guess, a little sympathy. Although I'm not in the mood to offer any, seeing as I'm pretty pissed myself. I already knew that Haruhi's movie was so bad, it was unfit for viewing. She was just winging it at full speed as usual without any planning or thinking. Whatever she happens to want to film at the moment is what we film. No transition or direction. If all of this produced an amazing movie, this would be the work of a genius. As far as I can see, Haruhi doesn't have any talent as a director. Still, when other people start pointing that out to me, I guess I was no different from Taniguchi. I do what Haruhi tells me to do, and then I bitch about it. I could apply what I felt about him to myself. I had gotten fed up with griping about every little thing Haruhi did, but it's my duty, a job only I can do. Not because I don't want to let someone else do it, but because that's just how it is. Food doesn't taste very good when you're eating while irritated. Now I feel bad about my mom making it for me. God damn it, Taniguchi. It's all because you had to open your mouth. Now I feel like doing something I'll probably regret in the distant future. So what did I do? I replaced the cover of my box lunch and dashed out of the classroom. Haruhi was in the literary club hooking the video camera up to the computer or something, but when she saw me suddenly open the door, she looked up in surprise. She hastily tossed her bread aside and reached behind her head to touch her hair. Or so I thought, but then she untied her hair. Not sure why, but apparently she was in a rush to untie a clump of hair in the back of her head. I didn't get a good look, so I'll just think about it later. I said the words I needed to say right then. Hey, Haruhi. What is it? Haruhi had a look on her face like she was ready for combat. I said it straight to her face. Let's absolutely make this film a success. It was a spur-of-the-moment thing. Even I may experience a high once or twice a year. That's probably why I snapped yesterday. It was just bad timing. And then today, the combination of Koizumi's strange conversation, Taniguchi's dumb face, and Haruhi looking depressed got me all agitated. If I hadn't done something about these pent-up urges, I might have to start walking around and smashing classroom windows, so I released it here instead. Why am I making excuses? Haruhi said before continuing. Well, of course. I'm the director after all. Success is guaranteed. I don't need you to tell me that. So simple-minded. I was kind of expecting her to react in a somewhat laudable manner, but her eyes, shining brightly for reasons unknown, had been reignited with the flames of confidence. Way too easy. About as annoying as a mid-boss that keeps casting high-level healing spells on itself, but I didn't really care. The important thing is balance. A game where you just send a bunch of weak guys beyond in one blow and it's over. What was it again? That's it. It doesn't have catharsis. Not that I actually know what that means. Or it didn't mean anything to begin with. What I'm trying to say is that I don't want to see a cheerless Haruhi because it weirds me out. Her mind is meant to always be engaged in a 1,000-meter dash with no meaning, purpose, or destination. Since it seems that she stops for some weird reason, she unconsciously causes even more random trouble. That's all. At least, that's what I believed at the time. After school the same day. Couldn't you have worded it just a little bit different? Koizumi asked. Sorry, I replied. You know, when I asked you to cheer her up, I was expecting something with less, potential to create harm. Yeah, sorry. So instead of restoring the situation, you seem to have escalated it. We're not going to be able to conceal anything at this rate. Koizumi looked at me with gentle eyes as I reflected upon my actions. He didn't blame me, though I could sense a tone of distress in his voice. Guess that makes sense. The situation's definitely gotten worse. And it's all my fault. Why is that? Fuck if I know. The cherry blossoms were in full bloom. We were walking down a cherry tree-lined path along the river. This was the river walk where Asahina had revealed her identity to me. Just to remind you guys, it's fall right now. Even if lingering traces of summer heat remain, Yoshino cherry trees bloom in spring. I don't have a problem if they start blooming early, but not 6 months early. There's no reason for cherry trees to tag along with this sun and going overboard. Standing within the dancing cherry blossoms, Haruhi was the only one in full gear. Asahina, in her tight waitress outfit, was tottering around nervously, probably because all of the out-of-season cherry blossom watchers around. How convenient! I was just thinking about how I'd like to shoot with cherry blossoms. This abnormal weather is perfect timing, Haruhi exclaimed, sending spit flying as she forced Asahina to strike random poses. Guess it's no good. When humans act on moment's impulse, it always comes back to haunt them. It feels like I've been repeatedly learning this lesson over the past 6 months. A very negative lesson where I went, shouldn't have done that, instead of, if I only had done that. Someone lent me a gun, and I don't mean the model gun. It appears that the buds on the cherry trees began sprouting around noon, and by evening they were in full bloom. The local news station even sent down a crew to report on this unusual autumn occurrence. I wish they just assumed that it happens every once in a while. The strange global climate in the past few years would be the underlying cause. Just leave it at that, okay? That's what Suzumiya appears to believe, Koizumi, who had just been walking next to Asahina down by the riverbank just a moment ago, remarked. The shot of Koizumi, who merely looked good, and Asahina, who was purely good, next to each other was incredibly well suited for pissing off every single male on the planet. It left me with an unpleasant feeling. Nagato had nothing to say about the cherry blossoms and no expression on her face either. She simply stared at the blossoms with the whacked-out internal clock. The sight of pink petals on her black mantle created a slight contrast effect. I wonder if she knows about the white doves. "That's it! Let's catch a cat," Haruhi said out of the blue. "You know how, witches have familiars, and cats are the best fit. Is there, a black cat somewhere? One with really glossy fur." Hold on, wasn't Nagato's initial setting an evil alien? "Look, just find a cat, okay? That's the image I have in my mind right now. Where's a good place to find a cat?" Probably a pet store. Oddly enough, Haruhi responded to my slapdash remark with a compromise. A stray cat works. It'd be a pain to try to borrow one that's for sale or has an owner. Shouldn't we be able to find a whole bunch lying around on some vacant piece of land? Yuki, do you know?" "I know." Nagato nodded her head ever so slightly before she started walking off like a religious leader guiding us to the promised land. I guess there isn't anything Nagato doesn't know. If I ask her where the coin purse I dropped 5 years ago went, she'd probably give me an answer. After 15 minutes of walking, we arrived behind the fancy apartment building where Nagato lived by herself. There was a well-maintained lawn shaded by trees that blocked the view from the outside. A number of cats were gathered there. They appeared to be strays, but none of them appeared to be afraid of people, seeing as that none of them ran away when we approached. They even started following us around. Maybe they were expecting to be fed. Haruhi picked one of the cats up. "There aren't any black cats here. We'll just go with this one then." It was a calico, and a male one to boot. But Haruhi apparently had no idea how rare that was and showed no surprise at the result from her random sampling. "Okay, Yuki, this is your partner. Get along now." Nagato silently accepted the calico cat Haruhi was holding up. She showed as much emotion as she was accepting a tissue. The cat didn't show much emotion either. We promptly began filming on the spot again. We were behind the apartment building. I don't really think she cared about location anymore. My video camera was filled with a bunch of erratic, spur-of-the-moment cuts. It better not be my job to edit all of this into a single story. "Yuki, attack Mikuru!" Nagato nodded in response to Haruhi's orders, in an awkward stance. A black-garbed mage with a cat riding on her left shoulder. The cat obviously looked too heavy to ride there. It helped that the calico was obediently clinging to Nagato, but Nagato had not tilt just her neck but her whole body to keep her balance and prevent the cat from falling off. And while maintaining that unnatural posture, she waved over her wand at Asahina. "Take this." I'm guessing that magical rays will be shooting out of Nagato's wand for this scene. "Ah!" "Okay, cut," Haruhi said in a satisfied tone as I stopped recording. Koizumi lowered the reflector board. "We'll make it so that the cat talks. He's supposed to be a mage's familiar. He can deliver a sarcastic insult or something." Unbelievable. "Your name's gonna be Shamisen. Come on, Shamisen, say something." Like he's going to start talking. Oh, yeah, please do not start talking. Perhaps my prayer was heard, because the calico cat with the ominous name Shamisen did not suddenly start speaking human language. Instead, he started grooming his tail, completely ignoring Haruhi's order. The natural reaction, but it still left me feeling relieved. "Looking good." Haruhi smiled with satisfaction as she checked the film we shot today. Hard to believe she was looking depressed just this morning. Being able to move on quickly is a good thing. That alone, I can admire her for. "Kyon, you're going to be responsible for taking care of the cat." She delivered the absurd command to me as she folded up her director's chair. "Give him a warm reception when you get home. We'll need him for future filming, so do a proper job of taming him. Teach him to do a trick or two or something. Yeah, like jumping through a ring of fire." I have to say that being able to sit still on Nagato's shoulder puts him in a high-performing category of cats. "Well, that's all for today. We'll be heading to the final stage tomorrow. The filming is smoothly approaching the climax and everyone's in perfect shape. Make sure you get plenty of rest for tomorrow." After Haruhi dismissed us with a wave of the megaphone, she left by herself humming the ending theme for Blade Runner. Phew. Asahina and I sighed in unison. As for the other two, Koizumi had the reflector board under his arm as he prepared to go home. Nagato was looking at Shamisen the way you look at a ballpoint pen with no ink. I crouched down and petted the calico on his head. "Good work, little guy. I'll treat you to a can of cat food later. Or would you prefer dried sardines?" "Either's fine with me." Spoken in a clear baritone voice. It didn't belong to anyone there. I looked at the gaping faces of Koizumi and Asahina before turning to Nagato's blank face. All three were staring at the same thing. My feet. A calico cat was up looking at me with round, black eyes. Was Was that Nagato just now? I wasn't talking to you, I was talking to the cat. That was my belief, which is why I responded. Did I say something wrong? The cat spoke. Oh my god. That was Koizumi. A talking cat? That was Asahina. That was Nagato. I cannot fathom why you people are so surprised. He was talking as he clung to Nagato's shoulder. Must be something along the lines of a cat demon type creature. Don't they say that this is what happens after they live so many years? I don't know the answer. I place no value in having a sense of time. I have no interest in differentiating between the present and past. The cat talking was weird enough, but now he's sounding like an academic. Pretty cheeky for something with pause. Indeed, from your perspective, it may appear that I am emitting sounds that resemble human speech. However, parrots and parakeets are capable of doing the same. How can you be so sure that the sounds I emit are meant to express the meaning of the words you hear? Well, you're answering our questions. Is it not possible that the sounds I'm emitting simply confirm by coincidence the conditions of a response to your question? Well, if you accept that, wouldn't that mean that fellow human beings could be talking without actually holding a conversation? Wait, why the fuck am I having this conversation with a cat? The stray calico licked his front paw and scratched under his ear. You are absolutely correct. You and the young lady over there could engage in actions that could make it appear as though you were holding a conversation, but nobody would have any way of knowing whether or not accurate communication occurred. Shamisen said in an oddly rough voice. Since people may or may not say what they really mean in different situations. Shut the fuck up, Koizumi. I guess when you put it that way, it does, make sense? Asahina said. Sorry, Asahina, but can you also shut up? After examining the cats on the lawn one by one, we learned that every one besides Shamisen could only meow. Apparently, this calico cat was the only one that could benefit from a sudden ability to speak a human language. Why was that? Oh, yeah, it's that idiot's fault. The current situation doesn't look very encouraging, Koizumi offered as he elegantly carried his mug to his lips. It seems we have underestimated Suzumiya. What do you mean? Asked Asahina in a hushed voice. I feared that the setting within Suzumiya's movie is becoming the conventional reality of this world. Events transpiring within her movie are becoming reality. At this rate, they will become a normal sight in our world, like Asahina shooting lasers or cats talking. If she wishes to shoot a scene with a giant meteorite falling, it might happen. The 4 SOS Brigade members, sans Haruhi, were gathered in the cafe in front of the station. Koizumi proposed the establishment of an emergency joint headquarters for the purpose of dealing with Haruhi, and the rest of us agreed. It would appear that the situation was seriously deteriorating at a rapid pace. On the outside, we would have looked like a group of high schoolers merely engaged in an idle chat. But our meeting was about as suspicious as evil ringleaders in a tokusatsu, getting together to discuss how to seal away the good guys' special attacks. I should mention that Shamisen was waiting outside by some shrubbery after being instructed not to talk or respond to anybody. The cat simply said, "Very well," without any sign of displeasure as he obediently hid under the shade of the evergreen tree by the road and watched us go. So what's gonna happen? Asahina looked remarkably solemn. The poor thing looked especially worn out. She was the one who suffered the most as the result of Haruhi's movie. There was no change in Nagato's default blank expression, and she was still dressed in the black cloak. Koizumi spoke as he sipped his coffee. If there's one thing we've learned, it would be that it's a bad idea to leave Suzumiya alone as do as she pleases. Yeah, we do not need you to tell us that. I downed my glass of water in one go. I already finished the apple tea I ordered. Isn't that why we're trying to solve the problem of how to stop Haruhi? That's easy to say, but who could possibly cancel the production of this movie at this point? At the very least, I do not believe I would have a chance. Neither do I. Once Haruhi's engine is running, she's going to keep on going until it's turned off. Maybe she related to those fish that die when they stop swimming. Hell, maybe we could trace her family tree and find Tuna or Benito among her ancestors. Nagato slightly drank her cinnamon tea, looking like she wasn't thinking about anything at all. Maybe she really isn't thinking about anything at all. Or maybe because she already knows everything, so she doesn't need to think. Or she's just a poor talker. After 6 months, I still have no idea what's up with her. Nagato, what do you think? Got any opinions? Nagato soundlessly returned her cup to the saucer and smoothly turned to look at me. Unlike the previous incident, Haruhi Suzumiya has not disappeared from this world. Her voice sounded like it was freeze-dried. The data Overmind has determined that is sufficient. Koizumi gracefully placed a hand on his forehead. But it's still a problem for us. There is no problem for us. Rather, we welcome the outbreak of change in our subject of observation. Really? Koizumi quickly gave up on Nagato and turned back to me. Then we need to decide what genre Suzumiya's movie will fall under. Well, it looks like he's going to stop making sense again. The makeup of this story can be roughly assigned to one of three classifications. One that takes place within the framework of the story, one that destroys the framework and creates a new framework, or one that destroys the framework and restores it again. Looks like he's making a speech about something, huh? What is this guy talking about? That would be the general reaction from the audience. Asahina, you shouldn't be listening to him so earnestly. Incidentally, we exist within the framework, so we can only learn about the world through logically thought-out conjecture or observational perception. You keep mentioning this framework. What do you even mean by that? For example, let's consider the reality we exist in. I'm speaking of the world we live in currently. On the other hand, the movie Suzumiya is producing would be considered fiction. Yeah, no shit. The perceived problem is that events within fiction are having an effect on reality. The miracle Makuru Eye, doves, cherry blossoms, cat. We must guard against the infringement of fiction into reality. Koizumi always looked so cheerful when he talked about stuff like this. His sunny face was practically beaming. I resisted by having a gloomy expression on my face. Suzumiya's strange powers are being actualized by using the production of this film as a filter. To guard against that, we must make Suzumiya understand that fiction is just fiction. At this moment, she has managed to unconsciously blur the distinction. She must really be on a roll. We need to use a logical process to prove that fictional events are not real. We must shape this movie into a rational, calm affair. How the hell do we justify a cat talking? We're not going to be justifying anything. That would merely lead to the construction of a world where cats talk. In our reality, cats do not talk. We must emphasize that there is something wrong with a talking cat, because a world where cats can talk cannot possibly be a part of our world. But it's okay for aliens, time travelers, and espers. Well, yes, of course, because they already do exist. That is considered normal in our world. There just happens to be a condition that Suzumiya must not know about it. Let us pretend that there is an entity watching our world from afar. As far as this effeminate creature is concerned, the real would be, as you mentioned, one free of any paranormal or supernatural phenomena. A world where aliens, time travelers, and espers do not exist, which means that our current reality would be viewed as a fictional world. So that's the identity of your god, huh? However, it wouldn't be the perspective of the outside. You're already aware of the supernatural beings, such as myself and Nagato, that exist in this world. And in order to live in this world, you must accept reality from within that framework. Your concept of reality has changed in the past year. I might have been better off not knowing. Are you sure about that? Well, one thing is for certain. Suzumiya's current condition is similar to your prior one. In other words, her perception of reality has not yet changed. While she may say differently, deep down she does not believe in the existence of all these things. She personally witnessed closed space and the Celestials, yet she believes that the incident was a dream. Dreams are fiction, which is why this reality still remains our reality. Which means what? Suzumiya will recognize it as reality, and talking cats will become accepted as part of the reality. It's considered weird for a cat to talk, so the realization of talking cats would require the reconstruction of this world. Suzumiya would create a world where talking cats would not be considered strange. It would most likely not be a world out of science fiction. Based on her pattern of thinking, she'd probably find that too much trouble. The world would simply fall under the laws of fantasy. Talking cats exist. That's all that needs to be said. No need for any excuses of why cats can talk, because cats will have to become talking animals to begin with. Koizumi set down his mug and rubbed the ceramic edge with his finger. That would be a problem. The principles of our world was built so it would be turned upside down. I happen to respect what the human race has accomplished through observation and experimentation. On top of that, nobody has ever observed a cat spontaneously talking without any outside influence, which means that nobody would expect it to happen. It would be regarded as a bizarre anomaly in this world. What about you guys? Couldn't you guys say the same thing about espers? Well, yes. That is why we would consider deviations to disturb the established laws of this world. We exist because of Suzumiya, which means that the same can be said for this talking cat. An existence derived by Suzumiya for the purpose of appearing in this movie. It would appear that this link is attempting to form between the contents of Suzumiya's movie and the real world. At least, that's what we've learned so far. So, now we know. Anything we can do about it? First of all, we must decide on a genre for this movie. I want to tell him to cut the crap already. Sure, you can enjoy delivering pretentious long speeches, but try to consider how your audience might feel. This is as bad as a morning assembly. See, Asahina's been looking kind of gloomy for a while now. However, Koizumi wasn't done talking. If this were a fantasy world, cats talking, Asahina shooting beams from her eyes, and other such phenomena would require no explanation. Because in such a world, that would be how it always has been. I looked outside the window to make sure Shamisen was still there. However, if there were a reason for talking cats and Mikuro beams to exist, that in itself would make this a different world. Cats were talking and Asahina was shooting beams in reality, but we weren't aware of it. Their existence would be proven through observation, but in that instance, the world would be altered. From a world without supernatural phenomena to a world that includes supernatural phenomena. The real world as we know it would become a fairy tale. I sighed. It didn't look like he was ever going to stop talking. So basically, if cats can talk, there is a reason why cats can talk. Is that what you're trying to say? But in that case, what about you, Nagato, and Asahina? Wouldn't you and the girls be classified as supernatural phenomena? Well, from your perspective, perhaps. It's a self-evident truth. From your perspective, the world has already changed. Your perception of the world has changed since you entered high school, hasn't it? You are not already aware of the existence of beings like us, are you not? So what are you trying to tell me? Let's return to the topic of this film. At this point, what Suzumiya is attempting to make would probably be classified as fantasy. Within the movie, the cat talks and Asahina and Nagato use magical powers without any explanation. That's just how it works. That's enough. So we just have to give the cat demon, time-traveling waitress, and evil mage a reason to exist? But it isn't so simple. In fact, things would worsen if we gave them a reason to exist. If an observer were able to recognize the change within the world of the story between the start and end, it would mean the same as accepting their existence. I can't say that I'd welcome the addition of further complications to this world. Neither would I. Finally, we agree on something. Only Nagato's people wouldn't mind that. I mentioned earlier that we needed to decide on a genre. I would like to offer the name of a genre at this point. This genre has the potential to disassemble all of the puzzles and supernatural phenomena with a rational explanation and return this distorted world back to its original state. The only genre where the world is restored at the end of its starting condition and all phenomena is eliminated through rational means. And what's that? That, my friend, is mystery. Classic mystery. If you utilize the methods of this genre, phenomena that were hard to believe will become just that, phenomena that were hard to believe, without any need for bringing out supernatural elements. Talking cats and Asahina's killer beams would be explained by having the result of some sort of trick. Our reality would remain unchanged. The cafe waitress came to take our cups, purposely ignoring Asahina the whole time. Once she left, Koizumi continued. A cat that can speak a human language obviously goes against the common sense of this world. Nevertheless, a talking cat exists here. Something that should not exist exists. That is excruciatingly inconvenient for our world. He flicked a drop of condensation on his glass. So to resolve this situation, we must devise a rational ending for the movie, a conclusion that addresses the presence of talking cats, time travelers, and alien mages that can be accepted by everybody, but most importantly, Suzumiya, in a logical manner. Does such a thing even exist? It does. A conclusion that can transform every illogical occurrence into something ordinary in a relatively simple manner. Well, let's hear it. It was all a dream. Silence fell upon all of us. Eventually, Koizumi spoke. That wasn't intended as a joke. I directed a scornful look at the gentleman twisting his hair around his fingers. Do you really think Haruhi will accept that? Lies and truth aside, she's pretty serious about winning that award. And you want to say it was all just a dream? I'm pretty sure she's not dumb enough to want to make such a retarded movie. How she feels is not relevant. This resolution was determined by our needs. Deeming that everything that happened within the movie was a dream, lie, or mistake is the best way to settle the matter. Well, for you maybe. Hell, it might be better for me too. But what about Haruhi? She may have already thought up of a spectacular, at least in her mind, last scene to use for the ending. Besides, I don't want you to touch the subject of dreams again. The same goes for your boring, arbitrary expositions. I stopped by the general store on the way home. I bought the cheapest litter box and a can of cat food that was on sale. I also asked for a receipt, just in case. Shamisen was washing his face with his paws as he waited. I walked off. The cat followed. Okay, don't say a single word at home. You gotta behave like a cat, okay? I do not understand what you mean when you say I have to behave like a cat, but I'll do as you request. Hey, no talking. Respond with meow. Meow. Upon seeing me arrive home with a stray cat, my sister and mother's eyes grew wide. I made up some explanation that his owner's an acquaintance of mine who went on a trip, so I have to take care of him for a week, and received their ready consent. My sister was especially happy and began petting Shamisen all over. The cat demon responded by obediently repeating the sound, meow. Guess that wasn't very cat-like either. The night safely passed. I had to go to school again in the morning. I was worried about leaving Shamisen alone, so I brought him along. As I urged him to get into the duffel bag, Shamisen responded with, very well then, I suppose, in an arrogant tone before entering. I let him out by the school gate. Only a few days remained before the cultural festival, and the atmosphere of chaos in our school had been steadily growing, as though it was linked with Haruhi's fervor. It made me wonder what the lack of energy until yesterday had been about. It was early in the morning, and I could already hear noisemakers and singers. There were also people making signs on billboards. There was even a group of people wandering around in weird costumes that made you wonder what they were even planning on doing. As things stood, a slider or two could join in without feeling out of place. The only people without any motivation were the members of 1-5 probably. Maybe Haruhi sucked all the motivation out of that class. I entered the classroom to find Haruhi was already in her seat, scribbling furiously in a notebook. Did you finally feel like writing a script? I asked as I reached to my seat. Haruhi snorted as she raised her chin. No, this is a tagline for the movie. Let me see it. I picked up the notebook and glanced over the page. Loaded with precious, absolutely secret images of Mikuru Asahina. You'll absolutely regret missing this. The most talked about film of the year, presented by the SOS Brigade. Crowds will come flocking. I'll refrain from mentioning how uselessly sensational it is that there are only 2 months left in the year, but all of this really says that Asahina will be involved. If someone can read this tagline and imagine what the movie will be like, I'll respect that person for all the wrong reasons. Well, I'm the one filming everything, and I don't even know what the movie's about yet, so I really can't complain. Maybe Haruhi doesn't know either? I'm gonna print off a bunch of flyers and pass them out on the day of the festival. Yep, this is gonna work out great. Okabe's not gonna complain if I'm dressed as a bunny for the cultural festival, huh? Wink, wink. No, I think he'll still complain. This is a strict prefectural high school. Stop doing things that will give our teachers stomach pains. Besides, Asahina will be busy with her class refreshment stand. Koizumi and Nagato probably have stuff to do with their own classes. The only people who don't have anything to do that day are you and me. Haruhi looked at me with suspicious eyes. So you want to dress up in a bunny outfit? How'd you come to that conclusion? You can handle that by yourself. I'll stand behind you holding up the billboard. Hey, did you know? There aren't many days left until the cultural festival. The festival's this Saturday and Sunday. I know that. Really? You seem pretty relaxed, so I thought you might have gotten the date wrong. I'm not relaxed at all. At this very moment, I'm trying to come up with catchlines. There's something that needs to be done before you start thinking about advertising. When is the movie going to be finished? Don't worry, it'll be soon. We just need to shoot a few missing scenes, edit everything together, dub in some voices and music, add visual effects, and then it'll be done. Well, that's a surprise. From my perspective as the cameraman, I'd have to say that there would be more scenes missing than not. Exactly what type of movie does the director intend this to be? Plus, all that work sounds like it would take far more time than we've already spent. Though, it could be just my misconception of film. During the break between third and fourth period, a ridiculously loud voice rang across the classroom, making everyone there jump. I reflexively looked to see Suya peeking through the door. I could barely see Asahina's soft hair next to her. Kyon, hey, come here for a second. I dashed over as if drawn by Suya's smile. Haruhi was still following her practice of disappearing the second break began, so she wasn't in the classroom. She was probably wandering around school somewhere. It's pretty convenient, actually. As I went out into the hallway, Suya tugged on my sleeve. Mikuru has something to tell you, she shouted in a voice you could probably have heard on the opposite side of the building as she gave Asahina a smack on the back. Well, come on, Mikuru, give that to Kyon. With trembling hands, Asahina handed me a fluttery sheet of paper. This is, a discount voucher. It's for a class yakisoba cafe, added Suya to explain further. I gratefully accepted it. It was basically like a coupon. According to the signed words printed on the paper, you'd get a 35% discount if you brought this paper. Please invite your friends to come along. Asahina bowed her head as Suya laughed with a mouth as wide as a comic book character's. Well, that's all we gotta talk about. See ya, Kyon! As Suya merely walked off, Asahina moved to follow but immediately ran back to where I was. Suya chuckled at the sight and stopped and stood in a waiting stance. Asahina joined her fingers as she peered up at me. Hey, Kyon. Yeah, what's up? You
You really shouldn't trust what Koizumi says. I realize that this makes Koizumi sound like a bad person, which isn't my goal, but, still.
Do you mean about the stuff he says about Haruhi being God? Don't worry, I don't believe any of that.
I have a different idea about that. Basically, it's different from Koizumi's interpretation.
Asahina breathed deeply before looking at me with upturned eyes.
There's no doubt that Suzumiya has the power to alter the present. However, I don't believe she's changing the structure of the world. The world was like this to begin with. It wasn't created by Suzumiya.
Well, a view that totally rejects Koizumi's.
I believe that Nagato also might have a different view.
Asahina entwined her fingers before her uniform.
It might be rude to say this.
Suya was grinning as she watched us from a distance. The look on her face was that of a mother swallow urging her chick to leave the nest. I think she misunderstood what was going on. Asahina spoke her words in an unsophisticated tone.
What Koizumi is saying is different from what we believe. It would be improper to tell you, well, to not trust him, but,
She waved her hands frantically.
I'm sorry, I'm really bad at explaining things, but there's restrictions on what I can say.
She went through a cycle of hanging her head and looking back up at me.
Koizumi has his own circumstances and theories. The same goes for us, and probably Nagato as well.
Asahina gazed at me with a face so determined she must have mustered all the willpower in her body. She's still cute when she looks serious. As I shook from the emotion of being able to see her face up close, I answered confidently. I know. How could Haruhi possibly be God, right? If the money I throw in whenever I visit a temple goes to her, I might as well set up Asahina as the founder of a new religion. It'd probably attract more believers, too. I'd give it a double seal of approval. I think I find your view to be a lot easier to understand than Koizumi's. Asahina had a little smile on her face. If Sweet Peas could smile, it'd probably look something like this.
Thanks, Kyon. But I don't hold anything against Koizumi or anything. Please understand that.
After delivering that odd statement with upturned eyes, she dashed off at those she was running away. With a wave of her small hand, she chased after Suya like a spot-billed duckling following its mother. It would probably be a good idea to get some work done, and with that thought, I headed up to the room to fiddle with the computer, wondering why such an admirable thought had popped into my mind to find somebody already inside, wearing a pointy hat and black mantle while reading a book. Before I could say a word, Mikuru Asahina's tenet is to believe to be as follows, Nagato began as though she had read my mind. Haruhi Suzumiya is not the creator. She does not create this world. The world has already existed in its current form. Supernatural entities such as ESP, temporal deviations, and conceptual alien organisms were not born as a result of Haruhi Suzumiya's wishes. They always existed. Haruhi Suzumiya's role is to discover such entities without being aware of their identity, and she has wielded that power for the past 3 years. However, her discoveries do not lead to self-recognition. She is able to detect occurrences in this world, but she is by no means able to recognize them. That is because elements exist to prevent such recognition. Her lips, never smiling, spoke the words plainly. Nagato stared into my eyes and said the following before shutting her mouth. That would be us. So Asahina, for a reason different from Koizumi's, would also be inconvenienced by Haruhi finding mysterious phenomena? I asked. Yes. Nagato returned her eyes to the open book. She didn't seem very interested in the conversation. She has come from this space-time to protect the future space-time she belongs to. I have a feeling she just said something really important in passing. Haruhi Suzumiya is considered a variable to Mikuru Asahina's space-time, and in order to maintain the stability of the future, it is necessary to input the correct values. Mikuru Asahina's role is to regulate those values. Nagato flipped the page without making a sound. She continued without even using a blink of those hard black eyes. Itsuki Koizumi and Mikuru Asahina have differing roles in mind for Haruhi Suzumiya. They can never accept the opposite side's interpretation. As far as they are concerned, a divergent theory would shake the very foundations of their existence. Wait, Koizumi said that his ESP showed up 3 years ago. Nagato immediately responded to my query. There is no guarantee that Itsuki Koizumi is telling the truth. I immediately recall that handsome smiling face in my mind. You're kind of right. Koizumi's theory just happens to conveniently explain everything that happened to me. Who can I say if he's right? The fact of the matter is, Asahina told me not to believe him. But the same goes for Asahina's theory. Nobody can guarantee that Asahina's answer is correct. I look at Nagato. Everything Koizumi had said may have been a downright lie. Asahina may have not realized that her view was a lie. But this composed alien didn't look like she'd be able to lie. So what about you? What do you think about all this? Which one's correct? And what was that auto-evolution thing you were talking about anyway? The Blackguard bookworm was completely devoid of emotion. Any truth I may tell you be unable to grant you solid proof. That was when I saw a truly rare sight. Nagato had a hesitant expression on her face. As I stood astonished, she responded. There is no guarantee that I am telling the truth. And with that, she set down her book and left the club room, leaving the following words. Not for you, at least. The bell began to ring. I don't get it. Normally you wouldn't, right? Koizumi and Nagato don't talk in the way that could be easily understood by other people. It makes me wonder if they're doing this on purpose. They should put a little effort into trying to summarize what they're saying to something simpler, or they'll be speaking to deaf ears. Nobody's going to bother to listen. I walked along with my arms crossed as a group of people dressed in stateless medieval outfits ran past me and turned the corner. Nagato, in her black outfit, could probably join in without looking out of place. Maybe some class or club doesn't want to yield to Haruhi and is making their own fantasy movie. Lucky them. They're probably having a fun time filming their movie without having to deal with any of the problems plaguing me. And they probably have a director who actually has common sense when it comes to issuing commands. I sighed and returned to the 1-5 classroom. Haruhi was the only one who believed filming was going well. As the expressions of gloom on the faces of Asahina, Koizumi, and myself gradually escalated. A number of things appeared to be happening as the filming progressed. The next thing we knew, the model gun fired water bullets instead of BBs. Asahina shot dangerous crap from her eyes every time Haruhi brought a different colored contact. For example, the gold one shot rifle darts and the green one shot out micro black holes, which would only lead to her being bitten by Nagato each and every time. The cherry blossoms that bloomed fell to the ground the next day, and white doves of the shrine turned into passenger pigeons, which were supposed to be extinct. And apparently the Earth's axis was just a little off one of the days of filming. Nagato told me this, I really don't know why. Life was falling apart. I dragged my exhausted body home to be met by the whiskered animal opening its mouth. So I simply need to keep my mouth shut around that hyper girl. The calico was sprawled on the bed in the posture resembling the Sphinx. So you do understand. I gently grabbed Shamisen-'s long tail. The cat slid the tail out of my grasp with a swish. You're all behaving in a manner that suggested as much. I also had a premonition that allowing her to hear me speak would be inconvenient. That's what Koizumi says. A cat talked, meaning that you would need a reason to explain why it wouldn't be strange for a cat to talk. The simple way to put it is that you would apparently need to reconstruct the world in a way so that talking cats wouldn't be considered strange. I wonder what that world would be like. What would the cast be like? Shamisen yawned and began grooming his tail. There are many kinds of cats. Isn't it the same with humans? It'd be nice if you went into detail about what your many kinds exactly entails. What would be the point of knowing that? I doubt you could ever fully become a cat, much less understand the mentality of one. I am fed up with animals right now. I was planning on taking a bath when my sister came to my room and informed me that I had a visitor. I wondered who it might be as I went down the stairs. The one who finally had come all the way to my home was Koizumi. He looked drunk. I went outside into the night to deal with him. It'd be a bad idea to let him into my room with his endless talking, and I sure as hell didn't want to be faced with the prospect of being doubled up by him and Shamisen in some incomprehensible discussion of the abstract. As expected, Koizumi began babbling by himself about some kind of theory. He even said the following. Suzumiya has no interest in detailed background explanations or subplot. She simply goes with whatever feels more fun, and that's enough reason for her. There's no rational resolution or fancy foreshadowing. You could say that she created a rather transient story. She hasn't given any thought to a resolution. It is possible that this movie may end unfinished. And that would be a problem, huh? Based on what you've said, if the movie ends half-heartedly, this messed up reality would become a new reality. We have to force Haruhi to accept a conclusion in her mind, and that conclusion must conform to reality. And we're the ones who have to come up with such a conclusion. Haruhi doesn't think, and if she were to, the result would be chaos. If that was the case, we might as well do the thinking for her. Still, why do I have to rack my brain for such a reason? Anybody out there want to shoulder this curse for me? If such a person were to exist, Koizumi shrugged, that person would have appeared before us long ago. Therefore, we must do something about the situation. I'm especially looking forward to your efforts. Efforts to what? Start by explaining that to me. We have a problem with the world becoming fiction from a logical standpoint. Asahina may also have a problem with it. Her people follow her own logic. I'm not really sure about Nagato, but observers merely need to take in results. They'll simply accept whatever theory wins out in the end. They have no problem with the earth being blown to bits, as long as Suzumiya remains. The outdoor lamp illuminated Koizumi's business-like expression. The truth is that our agency and Asahina's factions are not the only ones with theories centered on Suzumiya. There are many others. I would love to give you a digest of the disputes and bloody battles of death going on under the surface. Alliances and betrayals, sabotage and deceit, destruction and slaughter. A battle royale where each group must fight with all their strength to survive. Koizumi had a tired, cynical smile on his face. I don't believe that our theory is absolutely correct. However, I must accept it or I'll be unable to continue in my current situation. I just happen to be initially placed on that side. I don't have the option of changing sides. A white pawn cannot switch to the black side. Personally, that's why I'm a fan of Othello. This has nothing to do with you, nor Suzumiya for that matter. It is better that way. I hope that Suzumiya never learns about it. I don't want to cause her grief. By my standards, Suzumiya is a lovable character. I think you agree. Why are you telling me this? Merely a slip of the tongue. There is no real reason. Besides, I might be joking. Perhaps I'm being possessed by bizarre delusions. Or I'm simply trying to earn your sympathy. Whatever the case, it isn't amusing enough to discuss. Yeah, I'm not amused. I may as well tell you something that isn't amusing. I've come up with a theory regarding why Mikuru Asahina Asahina was sent to accompany us. Asahina appears to be a helpless, beautiful girl. I can understand why one would reflexively want to offer her help. You would probably accept everything she does in a positive way. Yeah, and? It is the spiritual duty of normal people to help the weak and break the strong. I think her role is to entice you. That is why Asahina's appearance and personality are the way they are. A timid, adorable girl who just happens to fit your tastes. You are the only person Suzumiya ever bothers listening to. Having a hold on you would be the optimal course of action. I fell silent. I recalled what Asahina had said to me half a year ago. Not the present Asahina, but the adult one who would come farther in the future. After calling me with a letter, she said don't get too close to me. Was she saying that because of her circumstances, or was she expressing her personal feelings? Koizumi took advantage of my silence to continue in a voice that sounded like an old Jomon Sugi was speaking. What if, and this is purely speculation, but what if Asahina is merely playing the role of a clumsy girl and her true personality is something completely different? She judged that doing so would earn your sympathy. The same goes for her position as a poor little girl childish in appearance who has to suffer Suzumiya's unreasonable demands. It's all done to attract your attention. She might be honeypotting you. This guy seriously lost his sanity. I attempted to imitate Nagato's flat voice. I am sick of listening to your jokes. Koizumi smiled a minuscule smile and spread his arms in an exaggerated fashion. Forgive me. It would appear that I lack the ability to carry through a joke. I'm just making it up. It would be a crazy setting I made up. I just felt like saying something serious. Do you think I meant it? If that's the case, my acting skills aren't too shabby. I'm starting to feel confident about stepping onto a stage. He continued after a grating chuckle. My class will be performing Shakespeare, Hamlet to be specific. I'll be playing the role of Guildenstern. Never heard the name before. He's probably just a minor character, right? Originally, that would be the case. However, as we progressed, we decided to switch to the Stoppard version, which means I have a much bigger role. Good job. I didn't even know there was another version of Hamlet besides Shakespeare's. Between Suzumiya's movie and this play, my schedule has been quite tight. I'm under a lot of pressure. If I appear to be mentally tired, that would be the reason why. I'm pretty confident that I would collapse if a closed space were to appear. That is another reason why I came to request your aid. To please stop the abnormal phenomena being caused by Suzumiya's movie. The rational conclusion thing? I just have to make Haruhi realize that everything in her movie was made up, right? Right, but it must be a clear understanding. She's quite smart. She's well aware of the fact that her movie is fiction. However, she wishes that the world would become that way. We need her to clearly understand that it won't. Before the filming is over, preferably. And after wishing me luck, Koizumi disappeared into the night. The hell was that? Did he come to shove the responsibility onto me? He has a lot to deal with, so I have to handle the rest? If that's the case, He'd come to the wrong person. We're not talking about the Joker and Old Maid here. Can't just push it around. And Haruhi Suzumiya isn't the 53rd card here. Not the trump card or the ace in the hole either. And she's definitely not the maid. I can't ignore all of this, though. Nagato aside, Asahina and Koizumi look like they're almost out of hit points. The same may be true for the entire world for that matter, but I wouldn't know. What a pain. Damn, I'm pretty pooped myself. I tried to come up with a plan. How to deal with Haruhi's delusions. A way to clearly make her understand that movie and reality are separate. What would that method to make her accept such an obvious thing? It was all just a dream. Or was there something else? Only a little time remained before the cultural festival. The next day, I made a suggestion to Haruhi. After some wrangling, she finally agreed to it. Okay, Haruhi yelled loudly as she sounded the microphone. Good work. We're done filming now. Everybody worked hard, especially myself. Yep, I'm pretty awesome. Good job, me. Upon hearing those words, waitress Asahina plopped down on the ground. She looked relieved from the bottom of her heart. So relieved that it looked like she might cry. In fact, tears were flowing from her eyes. Haruhi apparently took those tears to mean that she'd been overcome by emotion. Mikuru, it's too early to be crying. Save those tears from when you're awarded an Oscar. That way we can all be happy together. It was lunch break, and we were gathered on the roof of the school building. Tomorrow's the cultural festival. We have been so short on time that we didn't have time to eat lunch. The final battle between Mikuru and Yuki ended with the sudden awakening of some unknown power within Itsuki Koizumi and the usage of that convenient power to send Yuki flying into the deep reaches of space. This is perfect! We've made an incredible movie. If we take this to Hollywood, we'll have an avalanche of buyers. We should start by signing a contract with a skilled agent. Haruhi was cheerfully intent on going global. I had no idea who was going to watch this film, but the only selling point would be the leading actress, as no one wanted anything to do with the rest of the staff. In that case, I could tag along as Asahina's agent and promoter. I could probably make a little money that way. And while we're at it, maybe Haruhi could be an idol or something. I was willing to send in her photographs and background without telling her. So it's finally over, huh? Koizumi smiled at me with a sunny face. It's pretty aggravating, but he looked best when he had a free-of-charge smile on his face. I don't want to see a melancholic Koizumi. It would probably give me the creeps. But now that we're finished, it feels like it was all over in an instant. They say that time flies when you're having fun, but I wonder who was having fun in this case. Beats me. Can I trust you to handle the rest? I can't think about anything besides our class play at the moment, since you aren't allowed to retake lines the way you can in movies. Koizumi still had his usual grin. He placed his hand on my shoulder and whispered in a soft voice. One more thing. An expression of gratitude from both my organization and myself. And with that, he left the roof. Nagato slightly walked off after him with her usual blank expression. Asahina was with Haruhi, who had one hand around Asahina's shoulders and the other pointing toward the ocean as they looked off into the distance. We're aiming for a Hollywood blockbuster, she shouted. Feel free to point, but if you cross the ocean in that direction, you'll end up in Australia. Good grief, I muttered as I set the video camera down and sat. It may be over for Koizumi, Nagato, and Asahina, but this is the only beginning of the end for me. There's still something I have to do. Somebody had to take the mass quantity of digital video I had filmed and somehow transform the accumulation of junk digital information into the semblance of a movie. And I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't need to tell you who that task would fall to. It was Friday night. Haruhi and I were the only people in the club room. The other three were working with their respective classes. It was great when we finished shooting and all, but since the filming had taken so long, we barely had any time left to do the remaining tasks. As I replayed the footage I had loaded onto the computer, I came to the conclusion that we would have to turn this into a Mikuru Asahina promotional video clip. Very simple. To be honest, I didn't even have the slightest pixel of an idea of to what kind of movie Haruhi was making to the very end. Are the waitress, death girl, and grinning boy on the monitor okay in the head? And naturally, there wasn't enough time left to search around for visual effects, and I didn't have that ability to begin with. We'd have to screen the film without any processing or editing. Haruhi grumbled. We can't display an unfinished work. Do something about it. Is she talking to me? That's easy for you to say. The cultural festival's tomorrow and I'm already exhausted. Editing this thing to fit the story you made up was the best I could manage. I probably won't want to watch any movies for a while. However, Haruhi's excelled at crushing other people's opinions in an instant. Won't there be enough time if we pull an all-nighter? And who's going to do that? Except I didn't say that, since I was the only one there and Haruhi's ebony eyes were looking straight at me. You have to stay overnight and finish this job. And then Haruhi said something that left me utterly speechless. I can help too. In hindsight, Haruhi wasn't any help. She stood behind me for a while interfering, but it didn't even take an hour before she sprawled on the table asleep. Damn, I should have filmed her sleeping, and then I could have put a still shot of that face after the ending credits rolled. And I should mention that I also fell asleep soon after. By the time I opened my eyes, it was already morning and the keyboard was imprinted to half of my face, which means that there had been no point in staying overnight. The movie remained unfinished. I managed to cut and piece the thing into something under 30 minutes, but the result was pretty pathetic. Just a wreck film on a whim by a bunch of amateurs who didn't have the slightest clue on movies. I should have just defied Haruhi and only used the Bunny Asahina shopping district commercials, when you consider that the objective of my editing was to match a story that didn't exist, which would be like spurring on failure. The result would have been something awful. In the end, there had been no dubbing or visual effects added. Just a garbage movie so bad it was laughable. I couldn't even show this to Taniguchi. As I considered tossing the computer out the window, I squinted at the morning sunlight streaming in. I slept in unnatural positions, so my back was aching. By the time Haruhi, who had woken up first, had shaken me awake, it was 6:30 in the morning. Now that I think about it, this is the first time I've ever stayed overnight at school. "Hey, how'd it go?" Haruhi looked at the monitor over my shoulder. I had no choice but to move the mouse. The film began playing. Wait, what? As I listened to Haruhi's soft cheering, I was astonished. A CG movie I had never made was magnificently displaying a moving title. At that point, The Adventures of Mikuru Asahina, Episode 0, began playing with a crappy story, dialogue you could barely hear, and shaky video. You could even hear the director yelling off the screen at times. However, the visual effects could be considered acceptable for a high school amateur film. Lasers were shooting from Asahina's eye, and strange rays were shooting out of Nagato's wand. Haruhi was expressing her admiration. "Not bad. Feels a little lacking, but you did a good job." This wasn't me. Unless another personality surfaced and did this while I was sleeping, there was no way I could accomplish this. Someone else did it. Most likely candidate, Nagato. Possible contender, Koizumi. Out of the question, Asahina. Dark horse, somebody who hasn't made an appearance yet. Something like that. We spent the next period of time silently appreciating our autonomously produced movie. I might have felt something different if I were watching this on the big screen instead of this small monitor. The video on the display shifted to the last scene. Koizumi and Asahina were holding hands as they walked under cherry blossom trees in full bloom. The camera then panned up to show a blue sky. Cheap-sounding music began playing soon after the staff roll began scrolling vertically. At the very end, Haruhi began narrating. The idea I had devised was to force Haruhi to deliver this narration. I convinced her that the director herself should deliver the closing words for a bit of an inside joke. These were the magic words that canceled everything that had occurred. Ahem. This story is a work of fiction. There is no relation to any real people, organizations, events, or other names and phenomena. It's all made up. If anything seems familiar, it's just a coincidence. Oh, the commercials are an exception. Here's a shout out to Omori Electronics and Yamasuchi Model Shop. Give them a lot of business. What? Say it again. Are you This story is a work of fiction. There is no relation to any real people, organizations. Hey, Kyo, why do I have to do this? Doesn't it be obvious? The cultural festival had begun, and I had no longer had anything to do. From a practical standpoint, I would say that the people had the most fun during the preparation stage of the event. Once the event actually begins, everybody is hurrying around and time kinda zips by. The next thing you know, it's time to clean up. That's why I'll be lounging around until then. For the next 2 days at least. I can do whatever I want without anyone complaining. By now, Haruhi, the only one who might complain, was probably standing by the school gate in her bunny girl outfit, passing out flyers. At least until homeroom teacher Okabe and the executive committee show up to stop her. Well, I wonder how many flyers she'll pass out. I left the clubroom and headed to the school grounds bustling with activity. The alterations to reality we had feared had been quelled. That's what Koizumi claimed, and Nagato had confirmed it, so it must be true. I realized it when Shamisen stopped talking. He's as silent as Nagato now. It'd be kinda mean to kick him out at this point, so I'm planning on keeping him. My sister also seemed pretty happy about having a moving stuffed animal. I'll tell my family that the former owner ended up moving to his travel destination. The calico meows every now and then, which makes me think if he's actually trying to say something. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Speaking of stuff that's no longer around, I haven't been able to find a program in the cultural festival that would have featured a group of people I'd seen walking around in bizarre outfits. I even checked the pamphlet issued by the executive committee and had a peek at all the classrooms that seemed remotely relevant, but they weren't anywhere to be found. I wonder who they were. Wait, hold on. What if there are sliders wandering around our school, and the people from their world happen to wear fantasy-like clothing? Like what Nagato's been wearing. Wouldn't that mean that Nagato had purposely walked around in that outfit from the beginning to trick Haruhi? As if to give Haruhi the impression that such costumes were merely part of the cultural festival? Nagato never said anything, so I can't be sure, but it's possible that she engaged in some battle somewhere outside my knowledge. She was awfully quiet this time. If she had to save the Earth from destruction or something, she probably would have just silently done it. She might tell me if I asked, but it probably wouldn't be anything she could communicate through words, and I doubt that I have the brains to understand her if she did. That's why I decided to keep my mouth shut, especially when Haruhi's around. On a slightly related note, the SOS Brigade produced movie was screened in the AV room. Our film was screened with the Film Research Society as a double feature. Haruhi basically forced the Film Society into doing it this way. It was the only classroom with a projector. The Film Society disapproved until the very last second, but there isn't a human on this planet who could go against a decision by Haruhi, so in the end Haruhi had her way and the cruddy commercial-loaded movie was screened. By the way, the organization known as the SOS Brigade doesn't exist as far as the Cultural Festival Executive Committee is concerned, so there isn't an item labeled The Adventures of Mikuru Asahina on the Cultural Festival program. We probably should have given up placing first in the popularity poll. Any votes we do get would probably go to the Film Society. And on a slightly related note, remember the movie that had been broadcast late at night and been giving Haruhi the idea of making a film in the first place? Upon further research, I discovered that the movie hadn't even won a Golden Globe. The movie was called Dake, which had been screened at the Cannes Film Festival a fairly long time ago. Did she make some kind of mistake? Just to make sure, I rented it. I fell asleep after 30 minutes. Therefore, I was unable to determine if it was interesting or not. I'm planning on giving it another try before I return it. I decided I might as well watch Class 1-9's play. Koizumi had a dumb smile on his face the entire time while he's playing his odd role, which met a rather stupid death in the end. About as stupid as Haruhi's film actually, but the audience seemed to enjoy it. Maybe I was just biased because the leading part had been played by Koizumi, and the fact that Koizumi looked like he was being himself instead of acting definitely hurt. When Koizumi came out in response of the applause after the curtain call, he looked at me and shut one eye. As I left the classroom before his creepy wink could reach me, I figured I might as well check Nagato's class, but by the time I reached the classroom holding the fortune-telling convention, there was already a long line. I peeked in to see a number of girls dressed in black costumes. Nagato's inorganically pale face was among them. She was saying something in a flat voice to a customer as she moved her hands above a crystal ball placed on the desk. Try to keep it to the lost items and the like, Nagato. The film and the trouble caused by the film were dealt with by making Haruhi realize that, quote, it's just fiction after all. However, you can't say that the real world is fiction. You can't say people like that can't exist when Haruhi, Asahina, Nagato, and I are all here. Eventually, we may go our separate ways, but for now the SOS Brigade exists and the brigade chief and members are all together. That's the world as I know it, or as Nagato put it, for me at least. Well, what can I say? I have to wonder sometimes if this whole thing is just one big lie. Haruhi has no power. Asahina, Nagato, and Koizumi have just been putting on a grand show of lies. The white doves were painted. Shamisen was the result of ventriloquism or a hidden mic. The autumn cherry blossoms and the miracle Mikuru eye attack were all just some tricks, something like that. Even if that were the case, I don't think I'd really care. At any rate, none of that matters right now. Simple arithmetic will tell you that there's less strain on a person's head when we're all in this together instead of Haruhi and me being locked up somewhere by ourselves. The silver lining here is that I'm not the only SOS Brigade member. I am the only normal one, though. My eyes went to the clock of the classroom being used in the rest area, similar to 1-5. Oops, this isn't the time to be sitting around. It's almost time. It'd be a waste not to use these coupons after they were given to me. And also, I'm curious about what kind of costumes they'll be wearing. With my coupon, I hurried to the spot where I'd meet with Taniguchi and Kunakita to head to the Yakisoba cafe where Asahina awaited.